This is Mike Allen. He is an author and editor, and I'm going to do a lot more introducing via text so that he can just speak as much as he wants to. But the first thing I'd like to know is if you could give us a summary of your writing and editing and publishing career thus far, and that'll be a good introduction.
All right. Let me see if I can actually pull all of it together succinctly. As a writer, I'm probably best known for a collection of horror stories called Unseeming that came out in 2014 that was a finalist for the Shirley Jackson Award for Best Collection. I've also had a fair number of poems and short stories that are not horror published. I've won 3 Riesling Awards for poetry. That's an award given out by the Science Fiction Poetry Association, which, yes, is a thing that exists. As an editor, my 2 main projects that have been highest profile would be Clockwork Phoenix, which was a series of anthologies that collected short stories and some novelettes that didn't easily fit into any one genre, but would have elements of science fiction or fantasy or horror and otherwise be experimental or at least cutting edge in some way, in my subjective judgment of what that would be. And I recently closed this actually. For 20 years, I edited a magazine called Mythic Delirium that published a lot of poetry and also published a lot of sort of quirky, unclassifiable short stories. In addition, I have to say now that I'm also a publisher. I have put out books by probably the best known book to date that I've put out would be a collection called Bone Swans by a writer named C.S.E. Cooney that won the World Fantasy Award for Best Collection in 2016. It gathers 5 novellas that she wrote that make use of fairy tale and mythology elements in very original ways. And there's more, but that's the big stuff.
Okay, yes, that is some pretty big stuff. What do you consider to be some of the greatest obstacles that you faced as a writer, editor,
Oh, Lord.
publisher? Or maybe pick one. Pick one. 'Cause
Time management is certainly one issue. First, just finding time to do these things, and then figuring out which thing to give priority at any given point. And I am a complete failure at this. I'm terrible at time management. What I tend to do is completely overload myself. But it does, I do manage to get these things done at least, so I suppose it's working in a way. I guess this is related, finding the energy to make that happen. Regular life always continues regardless of what your own goals are. And you have to figure out how to fit your creative life in around all of that. There's the process of publishing itself, which is not unlike what salmon experience when they are swimming upstream to spawn. Let's go with that.
Okay,
Let's
that
go with
works.
that. I'm sure there's more.
That works, yes. My brain is still following the salmon spawning. That's wonderful. It's a wonderful analogy, actually. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing process or your sort of any favorite ritual or habit that you might have that helps get you to work?
My favorite mantra which is not original to me. I read it I first encountered it on the blog of a novelist named Elizabeth Bear, is write 3 sentences. What that means basically is if you've gone through the entire day and you haven't managed to do any writing at all because of whatever else was going on, make yourself sit down and add 3 more sentences to whatever the latest thing you're working on is, because you can always do that. That is a goal that is a goal that is always going to be possible if you make yourself do it. And if you do that every day or as many days as you can, there will be some days when those 3 sentences sort of gain traction, and suddenly you'll have 3 paragraphs or 3 pages, or on a really insane day, 10 pages. And there's many different things that you have to do to complete a story or a novel or a poem, and then get it out into the various publishing systems. But the first thing you have to do before anything else is to actually finish it. And often that is the most difficult step in terms of the amount of mental effort involved. So the write 3 sentences mantra is my number one thing. I meant to bring it with me to illustrate, but I got busy with deadlines at my day job today and left it. I carry a Stenopad around. Here's my imaginary Stenopad. So that if an opportunity arises for me to jot down 3 sentences, I've always got something with me that I can do that on. As technology is not always reliable for that.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it is.